Welcome back to CBS Sports HQ, and it has been a rough season for the Browns, the Giants, the Falcons, and the Bengals. So the big question is, what does that mean for the future of the GMs of those teams? And back to discuss with us is John Breech. Good to have you back with us. John, let's start with the Giants because they part ways with Coach Brian Daboll. They're 2-8 this season. It seems to just have unraveled despite some good draft moves, some of those rookies making an impact. But what does this mean for GM Joe Schoen?
Well, it looks like Joe Schoen is in trouble. I know the Giants have said they're going to evaluate at the end of the season, but the fact that they let Brian Daboll go makes me feel like Joe Schoen shouldn't feel too secure in his job right now. And I think when you look recently, look at what they did this offseason. They brought in Russell Wilson. That was a big-time free agent signing that did not work out. You mentioned the draft class this year, Tiffany. That has looked great with Jackson Dart, Cam Scadaboo. Back to 2020, Malik Neighbors was a great draft pick, but the rest of that class wasn't all that great. But I think the one thing that the Giants ownership is going to have to keep in mind here is that if you keep Joe Schoen, you're going to be letting him make another coaching hire, and then you're going to be letting him make what will probably be a top 10 draft pick. So you're kind of signing up with him for another few years if you let him make those two big moves. I'd be surprised if they do that just because he hasn't proven that he's been able to build a strong foundation over the past few years. So I won't be surprised if they end up letting him go.
Yeah, those factors you mentioned are definitely going to have some impact in whether they keep him on or not. Let's go down south because I've had to check on some of my friends in Atlanta because it's gotten really ugly. And it seems like they can't shake the Kirk Cousins signing. Now he's going to be starting for the injured Michael Penix. How do you evaluate GM Terry Fontenot's tenure?
Yeah, I think Terry Fontenot is going to be mostly remembered for what happened between Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins and all the drama there, because that alone is almost a fireable offense. When you give a quarterback a $180 million contract, I don't think that quarterback expects that you're going to go out and use a first-round pick, a top 10 pick on a quarterback, and that's what the Falcons did. And when you do that, you automatically create a situation that has tension, and there's really no way to get out of it because in the best case scenario, it would have been Cousins playing for 2 or 3 years, Penix taking over and putting together a Hall of Fame career. Well, that's highly unlikely. Instead, they're getting Kirk Cousins, who was coming off an Achilles injury, struggled after halfway through his first season with the team. Then you have to bench your $180 million quarterback, start your rookie quarterback. And Michael Penix in college had a history of injuries. He's now dealing with an injury and out for the season. So all these gambles you've taken at the quarterback position have failed. And now we're looking at his draft picks. And when you go all the way back to his first draft, he's really only hit 2 home runs with Drake London, Bijan Robinson there. Obviously, Michael Penix, that's still up in the air. We don't know if that one's going to work out. But when you're talking about 2 home runs over 4 or 5 years, really only 2 really good picks, that's just not a great track record. So it's just probably been a little frustrating for Falcons fans watching Fontenot operate in Atlanta. So it will be interesting to see what Arthur Blank does at the end of the season.
Yeah, frustrating, probably the best word to put it because I hear about it all the time. Let's leave the NFC and go to the AFC North because it hasn't been pretty at all for the Bengals, and it seems like they're on the cusp of missing the playoffs for a 3rd straight year. So what does this mean now for GM Duke Tobin?
Yeah, Duke Tobin is in an interesting spot because he's got that de facto GM title where the Bengals don't have a person who has the actual title of general manager. So it protects everyone, I guess, maybe from taking any responsibility. But when you look at what the Bengals have done over the past few years and why they haven't been able to win games really since the start of the 2023 season, of course, the Joe Burrow injuries are part of that, but it's been their defense. Their defense has just been not good. And the reason for that is because they just have a very unimpressive track record when it comes to drafting defensive players. This is a team with Duke Tobin running the show that has not drafted a defensive player who has made the Pro Bowl for them since 2010. It has been 15 years. So if you go that long, that is how you get and create the worst defense in the NFL, possibly in NFL history. And also there's been trouble on the offensive line where they had a tough time building that. So if your defense is bad because you're not drafting the right players and your offense can't protect your star quarterback, that's also a problem. So clearly the Bengals, something needs to change. Maybe they decide it's the head coach who has to be the scapegoat, but I'm not sure that Vince Lombardi in his prime could have won games with the Bengals defense this year. It just didn't matter who the head coach was because the defense is so bad, and that is on the front office. That's not on the head coach. So I would be shocked if they got rid of Duke Tobin because he's been there since 1999, but something does need to change as far as how they evaluate defensive players in the draft.
Yeah, your note there about the defense, it seems crazy how they handled the Trey Hendrickson situation going into the season because he's obviously an excellent player. Okay, we're moving along here. I'll see the 2-8 Browns when I'm working the sidelines this weekend when they take on the Raiders. From the Deshaun Watson contract to locking up Myles Garrett, it's like the opposite ends of two spectrums. How do you evaluate Andrew Berry's tenure? What's in store for him now?
Yeah, Andrew Berry's had an interesting career in Cleveland, to say the least, because there is some good that he's done, some very good. I mean, you just look at this 2025 draft class, and it's been absolutely phenomenal, from Mason Graham to Carson Schwetzinger to Quinshawn Judkins. And then you look at the trade where he went out and got that 2026 first-round pick by giving up the number 2 overall pick in 2025 and sending that to Jacksonville and letting the Jags take Travis Hunter. That part looks genius so far, but then you have that scarlet letter kind of hanging there that is the Deshaun Watson trade. And I mean, people have called it the worst trade in NFL history, and I'm not going to argue with that. And it's not even that the trade was made. It's just that has set the Browns back years, decades at the quarterback position. And I think that is the biggest problem Andrew Berry has had. He has not been able to figure out the quarterback position. We're talking about a team that Shedeur Sanders, when he starts on Sunday, if he starts, will be the 13th starting quarterback just since Andrew Berry took over as general manager in 2020. And in today's NFL, if you don't have a quarterback, you can't win games. And so it's not just the QB, though. It's the rest of the offense. They went into the season knowing their wide receiver room wasn't very strong. They had an aging offensive line room, and they just didn't do a lot to upgrade that. So although Berry has done well in the draft, there are a bunch of other aspects that kind of leave you questioning whether he should be the future guy that can lead this Browns franchise to maybe an eventual Super Bowl at some point. But at this point, I don't know that his track record shows that.
It's been definitely a rough go at it for the Browns, especially that quarterback position. 13, that if Shedeur starts, that's wild, John. Thanks so much for the great insight. Good having you with us. And just to cap it off here, another look at the NFL hot seat when it comes to GMs this season. Joe Schoen with the Giants, Terry Fontenot with the Falcons, Duke Tobin, the de facto GM with the Bengals, and of course Andrew Berry with the Browns.